think we're good to go. We'll talk about building connected web apps with Couchbase Mobile. My name is James. I work at Couchbase as a developer advocate based in London. And we'll have two use cases. We'll talk about PouchDB. So that's an implementation in the browser itself, written in JavaScript. And also using the REST API directly exposed by Syn Gateway. So those are the two methods you can use to build your web clients. So far, we talked about building mobile apps with the native SDKs in the platform of your choice. So with web clients, it could be the website for your app, exposing the same information that's visible to the native clients. It could be a mobile web app or a mobile website. It could also be an hybrid app if you chose to use PouchDB in your hybrid app. So the first thing when you get started using Syn Gateway with web, so that's in a web view in the browser, is to think about cores, because you don't want to have to set up a web server to then proxy that to Syn Gateway. So you might have, here for instance, in your script, I'm making a request to Syn Gateway, but I may be serving this index.html file from another port, say port 9000. And the browser won't let me make that request. I'll get no access, allow origin error. Since that's a security measure that all the browsers implement. So to be able to use cores, you just change the config file of Syn Gateway, and you add a couple of parameters. So for instance, the origin, which is, you're telling Syn Gateway, which origin am I allowed to say to the browser, yes, this web app is allowed to talk to Syn Gateway. So if you're serving your app on port 8000, in development, you configure it to 8000, and when you ship the app on your domain, then you just change it to your production domain. And in the requests, you'll notice if you use a debugging proxy tool that the origin here is localhost 8000, which is your web server serving your web app, and then the host here is Syn Gateway port. One other important thing to note when you use the REST API or PouchDB, as we'll see in a bit, with authentication, is to always enable the with credentials parameter right there on the second line from the bottom. This tells the browser to send the cookie to the to domains that are not the ones that you're serving your web app on. So effectively, because we're using cores, we need to tell the browser, yes, do send those credentials over to. So when we logged in as the host up there with the with credentials, it will record that host, and then in the subsequent requests, when we do a replication with PouchDB or just the REST API, it will send that token over again, or that cookie, sorry. So you can work with the XML HTTP API, but it's a bit cumbersome to use. So I'd recommend checking out Fetch, which is a new API, much simpler. It's now available in Chrome. It's not available in Safari and I think Firefox, I'm not sure. So you can use a polyfill. You can check out the one on GitHub. And it makes it super simple. So you just, that's actually JavaScript ES6 as well. So there's not even the function called, you just pass in an arrow and no return. So I'll be showing how to use the REST API in a React app, but it doesn't really matter. It applies to any framework you might use. And to kind of get a sense of the data model we're talking about, I'll quickly go over this one. This is the app we went through in the workshop, so some of you may be already familiar. We have 3 types of documents: a profile, a list, which has an owner, so it holds the ID of the document that created the list, and a task, which holds a list underscore ID property of the list it belongs to. So here I'll kind of walk through what you would do, using the REST API to have user login and all those features. So the first one is user authentication. So that's a post request to underscore session to create the session, passing in the name and the password. In the response, you get back this object, which is basically to say it was successful. It was a successful login. Otherwise, you would get 401 unauthorized, the wrong credentials. And notice the user context here. There's a channels parameter, which is the list of channels you have access to as a user. So yesterday, Adam and Andy talked about the sing function, how you could enable security user-based through the sing function. That's effectively what happens when you use the REST API. You get back the channels you have access to as a user. That's the response of the login. So you don't want to keep having to log in to get back those channels, right? So you can also do, so here you would redirect the user. So I'll do that right now. And once you're logged in, the cookie is set in the browser, and you can do a get to underscore session, and the browser will send that cookie again, and so you can get the context again of the user and display the channels he has access to. And in this particular case, the prefix of the channel is list dash, and then the rest of the channel name is a document ID. So that's our first entry point into other documents we may want to fetch from the REST API once we have those channel names. So then we can do a post to all docs and to say, I want to include the documents as well, the actual content of the document, not just the key. And in the body of the post request, we specify a keys array, which is the list of IDs we had in the user context. So if you name your channels in a, you can maximize the functionality of the REST API by naming your channels after certain user IDs, document IDs that you will need when you first log in. So that's, that was a bug. So here I have access to one list, and this is this request making the post with the list IDs, and then I get back the list. Now, I want to display, when I click on that list, I want to display the tasks that are part of that list. And in the sing function, I didn't walk through it now, but they are in a channel. And the channel is named, is the channel name you had access to when we logged in. So it's, for example, if I take this ID. Right. So it's here a GET request. You specify the channels as an array of channel names, and then that's the channel name. And those are other params that you need here. Include docs so we can also get the content in the response. And so that's, for example, from the profiles channel, that's what we would get back. So in this case, we do a request every time we click on a new list here, and to get the documents in that channel. If you have like many documents in the channel, you can also specify your last sequence and a limit parameter in the query string to say I want 50, or I want the next 50, and then do pagination that way, because obviously you wouldn't want to, every time the user opens your app, have a request with thousands of documents back in the JSON. So for the writes, when I save another to-do, that's very simple with the REST API. It's one endpoint, it's supposed to /todos, and the body is just your document, so your type of document, and then the other properties. So in your web app, let's see. Update document here. You might not see where you are. This update document method is just a post request, and so the URL is already the to-dos, and it's just a post request with the JSON I pass in from the application logic layer. So yeah, writes are quite simple. So that's how you get started with the REST API, and then build up your web client. But here we didn't talk about sync, and we didn't talk about replication. There's obviously PouchDB, as I mentioned earlier in the talk. And it's complementary. You can use PouchDB and REST API, or just REST API, or just PouchDB. So if you attended the DDS talk yesterday, you will have learned that you can do quite a lot with PouchDB itself. So I had this to-do MVC application. Everyone knows what to-do MVC is. It's like the very basic to-do. I only do to-dos. Very basic to-do app like that, where it's implemented in all the front-end frameworks. And so I wanted to take that very simple app and see what it would take to switch from, it was written with PouchDB, replicating to a CouchDB database, and I wanted to see what it would take to replicate to Sing Gateway, and to use the Sing function that I already had in my to-do Sing Gateway. So the first thing was to change the remote URL instead of pointing to the Sing Gateway. The second update was to update the data model. So in the first slides where I showed the data model of To-Do Lite, here in the second step, you can see I've added a couple of properties like list_ID, created that. So that's more like application logic. And then migrate guest to user. So that's to create a profile document. So again, a bit more configuration to make it work with the sync function. Since if you use PouchDB with CouchDB, there's no idea of filter or sync function. So if you've written your app in PouchDB and you want to start using Sync Gateway, you might have to do a bit of migration on some documents to say, okay, this is how my sync function works, so this is how my documents should look like. So I have to slightly change the documents in a way that will work with the sync function. So for example, the list underscore ID up there and the owner property. And then I save that profile. And then the last change here was authentication. So in this case, I was using Facebook. So I show the Facebook pop-up in the web UI. And then the token is passed in here. And because I call it with credentials equals true at the bottom there, it's going to authenticate with that access token using so with Sync Gateway. Sync Gateway returns a cookie, which will be set in the browser. And for all subsequent requests, which PouchDB will do for me because it's doing all the replication work, it will use that cookie. So it's that's pretty much the only HTTP request you have to make. It's like authentication. And that's a single list to-do app. So I hard-coded the ID here as 1, 2, 3. So there's only one list, and it's 1, 2, 3. So let's see what happens. So I'm already logged in, and I'm going to add a to-do. That's adding the to-do locally first. So in local storage or IndexedDB or WebSQL, depending on which browser PouchDB is running on. And all the adapters are shipped, they ship with PouchDB itself. So when you start the app, it just automatically chooses the adapter that's supported in the browser. So my to-do list here is called to-do MVC list. And I can't see it here yet. So if I go to the admin UI of Sync Gateway, I know that the ID of that list was 1, 2, 3, so it's here. To do it MVC list. And here there isn't a member, so I'm just going to add this manually here. I know the user I logged in as, and I know the name of that user, it's Oliver. So I can just change the document, and if I click Save, it creates a revision and saves it on Sync Gateway, runs it through the sync function, and grants Oliver access to that list. So if I head back to the app, nothing yet. But if I reload, I can now see I have another list. And that's the fundamental difference between REST API and PouchDB. You have to reload if you're using the REST API, unless you could use Socket.io or long polling, but then it makes it much harder to just build a web app, which shouldn't be the case. So once we have access to that to-do, we can add another one, and then here, when we reload, it shows up. Yeah. So far, we didn't write one line of server-side code. It was cause in the config file of Sync Gateway, PouchDB with cause and with credentials enabled, and then fetch API for the rest for talking to the REST API. So there are use cases where you might want to have an app server where obviously you have more logic to handle than just what SYN-Gateway gives you. So for example, that would be instead of having your web clients talking to SYN-Gateway direct, they would be talking to your Node.js server maybe, or any other server. And the rule of thumb there is anything you need from the admin port is a good use case to use an app server. So, for example, creating a user is not available on the user port. You can only create a user from the admin port. So that's where you could have your app server and expose that endpoint to your web apps and your native apps to say, that's when I create a user. Another one is Couchbase server views. So you can register Couchbase server views through SYN-Gateway, which will display in the Couchbase server admin UI. For example, if you have a product catalog app, you might display, you might have like hundreds of thousands of documents indexed in that view, and you don't want to put them all in a channel and have everybody sync all those documents. It would be a really long time before they can actually scroll because probably the phone is heating up and stuff. So what you can do is first, here we do a put request to design/extras. Extras is the name of the design document. A design document holds views. Notice that's the admin port. And then in the JSON, we specify a view. For example, we want to sort them by date if they are items. And so we emit the created at key. And then we query that view. And we can specify a start key and limit. So when the user is scrolling down, we just paginate and get the next 20. So 20, 20, and then we just carry on like that. And again, that API is only available through the admin port. So that's a good use case for having an app server expose that endpoint to all the applications. And something I didn't explore really today in the same app, but I will definitely, is how we could use the REST API from SYN-Gateway with PouchDB in the same application. Since the REST API is great for giving you, documents on demand, and the PouchDB is it has your back. Anywhere you run your app, it will be there because it's actually local. So if the user favorites an item, the handler for that button in the code could be a handle favorite function, which gets the document from the local database in PouchDB. And then there could be a favorites property on that document, which would be an array of item IDs that the user favorited. And you just add the item ID to that array. And then that gets synced back to SYN-Gateway, goes through the sync function, and the sync function might say all the favorites, all the item IDs of the documents in the favorites array go into a channel, and the user has access to that channel. So he picks up his iPad or his Mac, and there they are, all the bookmarked items. Yeah, so that's how the sync function could do that. So if it's the profile document that we just changed, we go through the favorites, and we just add them to. We give the user access to those docs. Actually, maybe I'm missing a channel here, but I think you get the idea. Yeah, so that's really it. So you can basically use the two in your application. I'd love to talk more about the use cases that you have in your apps for using one or the other. And you can read more about the REST API for Sync Gateway on the documentation portal. The To-Do-Lite web version is not up on GitHub yet, but definitely check out this link. It will be very soon. I'll push it probably tonight or tomorrow. Yeah. So that was it really, and anyone has any question, I'd love to answer them. Thanks very much. Yeah.
Is there a way to encrypt the data that's stored in batch?
That's a good question. Encryption in the browser.
Encryption in JSON?
I'm not sure about that. Maybe you can check. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe you can check. You can ask Nolan on Twitter. I'm sure he'll answer straight away. Yeah, it's not up yet, but it'll be that link, so I'll push it later today or tomorrow. Yeah.
So when using this approach, can I still call the regular Couchbase API and do nickel querying on documents, or do I need to go through the Sync Gateway?
So for your reads, you can go through. You can go direct to Couchbase server, but if you want to do write operations, you always go through Sync Gateway, because that's where the sync function runs on the document and then generates the metadata to say which channel it's in and then which user has access to it. So if you're doing reads, you can query straight on the Couchbase server bucket, and then writes always go through Sync Gateway itself. But maybe so maybe I see Adam and Andy here sitting at the back. So is there something to be concerned about? Okay.
But like none of the insert or update.
Yeah. So yeah, correct. Yeah, that's the only way you can do it. It's through the REST API itself. With to support nickel itself.
Yeah, like in the future, are you going to be able to send a nickel query to the Sync Gateway API and have it?
I'm not aware of any plans to have that, but yeah, I can see Adam is. Yeah, but the right endpoint, as I showed, is just very simple. So presumably it shouldn't be too much work to have your reads using nickel and all the great stuff there, and then just one endpoint to pipe it through the Sync Gateway. Yeah.
So the Sync Gateway by default, the data that compose is encrypted?
Sorry?
The Sync Gateway, when the mobile app syncs to the
Yeah.
gateway, by default the data encrypted?
So you can use HTTPS. There is an API to provide a certificate on each side, so that the replication protocol will use encryption and HTTPS, and that's the recommended way to use Couchbase Mobile in production. So yeah, you can do that. Yeah.
Do you think that this Sync Gateway can work with Meteor?
Yeah, I'm sure. I haven't tried, but so in a Meteor app where you would use the REST API or PouchDB, was it, or both? Maybe. But yeah, it should definitely be possible. The one thing to note here is that the REST API isn't totally like the rest APIs you would work with where you have an endpoint for every document. So it's like the resource/DID, and then delete all users. It's just /users delete, or it's a different API. It's a different model because it follows the sync function. So the way you design your sync function can have an impact also on your web apps, which shouldn't be a problem if you think about the features first and how you want to display the information to the user, which should be the decision you kind of take first, and then model your sync function according to that. Yeah, I think that's worked pretty well, where you think about the features first, then you create your sync function, and then you actually ship the app and you build the app like that. Yeah.
Excuse, how are you generating the keys?
For the underscore ID property, or?
Yeah, whatever is the key.
Yeah. You want to take that, Adam? In this app, I don't. So Couchbase Lite. So if you do a post request, just to /database name, in the body you have your JSON, and if you don't specify an underscore ID property, it will generate one for you, and you keep that around in your document. And if you specify one in the JSON, then it will use that and create one. If it already exists, it will return a conflict to say you can't save it. Yeah, so it is a good, for example, the users had some sort of ID. It was like the username, and the prefix, and then the username. But the list documents and the task documents were just the IDs generated by Couchbase Lite and Sync Gateway. Definitely make use of that if you can. So use those IDs because they are the primary key. So yeah.
Is there advantage to that versus using a UUID?
Yeah.
So a lot of the examples that I've read, they have things like prefix E colon something for email, E colon something for person. But I've also seen apps where they use array keys, so you might use a date and do year, month, day, so you could do range queries based on the date. I'm just looking for some guidance on key generation. Use the same strategy used for Couchbase server with Couchbase Sync Gateway.
I think the rule of thumb is to follow the same strategy. So maximize the underscore ID property and use multiple prefixes in there so you can.
Now Couchbase server has an increment function. Is something like that available for?
I don't think so. Is it increment as in every time you do a write, it automatically increments that ID? I don't think so. I don't think there's that support for Sync Gateway.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions? No? Great. Thanks very much.